This right here. I want you to look at this before I say another word. This came out of a dryer vent duct last summer. The family hadn't cleaned the duct once in 11 years. Not once. And the dryer had been running the whole time. Lights on, heat going, spinning every Tuesday and Thursday like clockwork. So nobody thought to question it. 11 years of lint. Every load. A small fraction passing the trap, riding the exhaust, rounding each bend in that pipe a little slower than it arrived. And staying. Compacting. Quietly, completely out of sight. Doing what lint does when you give it enough time and nowhere to go. By the time I pulled this out, the duct had maybe 1.5 inches of clear space left in the center. Their clothes had been taking 1 hour and 20 minutes to dry for 2 years. They'd already priced out a new machine. I'm Philip Hayes, 41 years at Bell Labs. I grew up in the Blue Ridge foothills, down in Roanoke, Virginia, in a house where my father had a rule he said exactly once: look before you spend. He didn't repeat himself. He assumed you understood. Give me 20 minutes. I'm going to show you exactly what to look at. Let me give you the numbers first, because they're the kind of numbers that should change how you do laundry. The National Fire Protection Association tracks this every year. Clothes dryers cause an average of nearly 16,000 residential structure fires annually in the United States. Not washers, dryers. And the top cause isn't a bad motor or a worn thermostat. 34% of dryer fires trace back to failure to clean the dryer. 28% trace back to failure to clean the vent system. Over 60% preventable with a brush and 20 minutes. $200 million in property damage every year. That's the NFPA's own figure, confirmed by UL Solutions. Not estimated, counted. Now, I grew up in a house where my mother had a particular impatience with problems you could simply fix. She'd have looked at those numbers and said, well, then fix it. So that's what we're going to do. But before we get into the repair, a lot of what I teach here comes from old maintenance manuals, the kind that used to ship with the appliance and actually get read. Nobody hands those to you anymore. I put together a collection of the most practical ones, working knowledge that used to travel down through families, in something called Ancestral Vault. Links in the description. I'm not going to make you any specific dollar promises, just the knowledge that used to come standard with owning things. Now, let's look at where this problem starts. Let me tell you how residential dryers were originally set up, because the engineering assumed something that most homes today don't have. The machine was designed around a specific exhaust pathway, short run, mostly straight, rigid metal, 4 inches round. The physics were deliberately simple. Hot, humid air carrying fine lint particles, moving with minimal resistance and minimal accumulation, directly outside. The engineers who specced those ducts built the machine around that assumption, around the expectation of free-flowing air maintained by someone. There was also a service culture that went with it. Back home, the appliance repairman came to the house. He had a truck with parts on it, pulled the dryer from the wall, checked the duct, told you what he found, left you a date to call him back. That wasn't special. That was just how it worked. That culture didn't end because people stopped caring. It ended because replacing became cheaper than servicing. And an entire generation of homeowners grew up without knowing the duct behind their dryer was a system, something with parts, something that needed attention, that had been collecting what I'm holding right now, year after year, out of sight behind their machine. If this is your first time here, hit subscribe. Every week, one expensive modern problem, one old school fix. No filler. And I want to hear from you. When was the last time you cleaned the duct behind your dryer? Not the lint trap, the actual duct running through the wall. Tell me in the comments. Some of those answers are going to be uncomfortable. Here is what actually happens, starting with the part you think you've already handled. The lint trap. You know it. You clean it, hopefully after every load, which is the right habit. And it does catch a significant amount of fiber. No argument there. But here is what the appliance store doesn't tell you when they sell you the machine. The lint trap was never designed to catch everything. It was designed to catch enough that you wouldn't notice the rest leaving. That's not a cynical reading. That's engineering reality. Fine particles, especially from synthetic fabrics, polyester, nylon, microfiber, the materials that make up the majority of what most people wash today, are physically small enough to pass straight through that mesh. They enter the duct, they ride the exhaust air, and they don't travel cleanly. Every curve in a duct run is a collection point. Airflow slows through a bend, the particles it's carrying slow with it, and some fraction of what was moving now sticks. Next load, slightly more sticks. The week after, slightly more. The duct, designed for free-flowing air, becomes a narrowing passage. The dryer, designed to work against almost no resistance, starts working against a wall. It runs hotter. It runs longer. It cycles more times per load, and the lint, which ignites at temperatures your dryer is fully capable of producing, waits. 16,000 times a year in this country. The math on that changes. I want to tell you about a man I'll call Gary, because that's his name, and he lives 2 streets from where I used to walk my dog. Gary had been fighting his dryer for close to a year. Loads that used to take 40 minutes were going an hour, then longer. He'd already watched a video online and replaced the heating element himself. Ran the dryer for 2 weeks. Same problem. Was pricing out a motor next. His wife called me. When I looked at his installation, 2 things were clear right away. First, the duct connecting his dryer to the exterior wall was white plastic flexible duct, the ribbed accordion kind. Second, the run had 3 90-degree bends in it. I disconnected the duct at the dryer end and shone a flashlight through it. I couldn't see daylight at the other end. In a 4-foot section of 4-inch duct, I had maybe 1.25 inches of clear space in the center. The rest was compacted gray lint, dense enough that it barely moved when I tapped the outside of the pipe. The motor was fine. The element he'd replaced was fine. The dryer itself had no problem. Gary had a duct problem, and the material that duct was made of had been making it worse with every single load for years. I'm going to come back to that material because it's sitting in more homes than you'd expect. And it's the piece of this story that can turn a maintenance problem into something you don't want to be dealing with at 2 in the morning. All right, let's fix this. 20 minutes. Everything you need is at any hardware store for under $20. First thing, do this before the machine moves an inch. Unplug the dryer from the wall. Not turn it off. Unplug it from the outlet completely. If you have a gas dryer, let the machine cool down before moving it. And I want to say this plainly and once. We are not touching the gas line. The gas connection at the back of the machine belongs to a licensed technician, not this video. We are working on the exhaust air duct, and nothing else. If your gas connection shows any discoloration, any looseness, any sign of wear at all, that is a phone call before you do anything else. Pull the dryer 1.5 feet away from the wall. That's enough working room. Disconnect the duct from the back of the machine. Most installations use a clamp or friction fit. Set the duct section aside. Now, flashlight into the exhaust port on the dryer itself, and separately into the duct you just removed. You're looking for restriction. Lint visible on the interior walls. Any narrowing of the clear channel through the center. If you can't see clearly through a short section of duct, you've already found the problem before you've spent a minute cleaning. Step 2. A dryer vent brush kit. Flexible extension rods that link together. Rotating brush head on the front end. $10 to $15. Feed it in from the dryer end, rotating as you push, working it through to the exterior vent. Pull out what comes out. Set it aside somewhere you can look at it. I'll tell you why at the end. Go around to the outside of your house and find the exterior vent cover, the louvered flap or cage where your dryer exhausts to the outside. Look at it closely. That cover is a collection point for lint that travels the full length of the duct and makes it to the exit. It can pack behind those louvers until airflow is nearly zero. Clean it by hand. If it has a screen or mesh behind it, know that the NFPA specifically recommends against screened exterior vent covers on dryers. Fine lint passes through the mesh and builds up behind it in a way you can't clear without pulling the whole assembly. Now, with the duct disconnected and visible in front of you, look at the material. This is where Gary's story becomes possibly your story. 2 materials that should never be in a dryer duct run. First, white or gray vinyl plastic flexible duct, the ribbed accordion hose. The NFPA prohibits it explicitly for dryer exhaust systems. Every major dryer manufacturer states in their installation manual that plastic flexible duct is a fire hazard. It collapses, it sags, it holds lint in every fold, and it is combustible. Second, silver foil accordion duct. Better than plastic, but the interior ridges trap lint with every load, and the folds compress over time. Rigid metal duct, smooth-bore aluminum, or galvanized steel is the only material that belongs in that run. Smooth interior, doesn't sag, doesn't accumulate lint and ridges, doesn't burn. If your installation has anything other than rigid metal for the main duct run, replacing it is under $40 in materials, and it is the highest value maintenance decision you can make for that machine. Let's go back to the beginning of this video, that ball of lint I set on the counter before I said a word. By now you know where it came from. 11 years. Every load. A fraction of every fiber passing the trap. entering the duct, rounding each bend a little slower than it arrived, and staying. Compacting. Week after week, year after year, completely invisible to the family doing laundry 6 feet away. By the time I pulled it out, it wasn't fluffy. It wasn't floating. It was compressed, dense enough to hold its shape in my hand when I set it on the counter. This is what your dryer has been trying to exhaust for the past several years. That family wasn't careless. They cleaned the lint trap every load. They ran the machine the way they'd been shown. Nobody told them the duct was a maintenance item. Nobody gave them a date to check it. Nobody explained that the trap catches most, not all, and that the rest has been going somewhere, and that somewhere has been narrowing quietly since the day they moved in. Clean ducts reduce drying time by up to 30%, according to Department of Energy data. They can extend the life of the appliance by up to 25%. A dryer that lasts 12 years instead of 8 is real money, the kind that stays in your pocket and doesn't go to the appliance store on a bad afternoon. But what I want you to hold on to isn't the efficiency number. It's the image, that ball, and the question of what's sitting in your duct right now. A few things before I put this back together, and I want you to hear them the way my father would have delivered them. Not as warnings, as facts. If you smell something burning while your dryer is running, stop the machine. Unplug it from the wall immediately. Do not run it again until a professional has inspected both the machine and the full duct run. A burning smell from a dryer during operation is not a quirk, and it's not something to run another load through to see if it clears up. It is the machine communicating. Pay attention to it. When you reconnect the duct and push the dryer back into place, do a simple airflow test before you call it done. Hold a piece of thin paper at the exterior vent cover and run the dryer for 30 seconds. The paper should pull clearly toward the vent. Not flutter, not hang. Pull. If it doesn't, the airflow is still restricted somewhere in the run, and you're not done. Clean this duct at minimum once a year. More often if you run heavy loads, towels, bedding, pet blankets, anything that sheds fiber heavily. Mark the date somewhere you'll see it. In Roanoke, my father treated the dryer duct the same way he treated the gutters. A fall ritual, not something you got around to when smoke was already in the hallway. The machines in that house ran 25 years without major failure, because they were looked after every single year, without exception. That was the whole secret. Let's go back to the beginning. That ball of lint on the counter. You saw it before you knew the story. Just a dense, gray object. Something slightly wrong about the shape of it before I'd explained a single thing. Now you know what it took to build it. 11 years. Every load. A fraction of every fabric. Passing that trap. Entering that duct. Rounding each bend a little slower than it arrived. And staying. Until the dryer was trying to breathe through something the size of your fist. Yours may not be at that point. But somewhere between a clean duct and that ball sitting on my counter is exactly where your dryer is right now. And only one of those places is where it should be. When was the last time you cleaned the duct behind your dryer? Not the lint trap, the actual duct. Tell me in the comments. I read every one of them.